Hello, everybody. Justin Stivers. Thank you guys for tuning in for another episode of the Stivers Show. Very excited for my guest today. He's kind of a legend in the legal community. Charley Mann, Chief Marketing Officer of Great Legal Marketing and Ben Glass Law. Glad to have you on, brother.
Hey, Justin, thank you so much for having me on. I was just noticing right now, beard-wise,
Yeah.
you're where I was just a few days ago. I just trimmed everything down. It's been fun as we've done like interviews and stuff throughout the quarantine period, seeing quarantine beards evolve.
Yeah, I kind of always keep a beard. It's like the beard and the hair, and it's like now it's more acceptable. I feel like there's like a reason behind it. So
Yes, thank goodness.
Yeah.
It's funny. My father, who's 63 years old, is growing a beard for the first time in his life.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, no, man, I wanted to have you on. Obviously, I think a lot of people watching will know you, will know the work that you and Ben do in Great Legal Marketing and all of that. And I think it's obviously interesting times for attorneys. And you'd asked me kind of, before we started filming, how's the practice and everything. And I can genuinely say, I think we're doing really well. But I think that's the answer a lot of attorneys are kind of giving right now, probably in your world, probably in the Great Legal Marketing, because you guys do things in a different type of way. But, and this is just kind of my gut reaction is attorneys in general tend to kind of like, make things look a little bit better than they are sometimes. And I think I sense that, just because I don't see a lot of other attorneys out there, I think probably a lot of attorneys are, maybe hurting a little bit. So I wanted to have you on because I know, get some free information for the people watching, attorneys watching, how they can, maybe if they're not already involved with you all, what they can do to maybe, ramp up their practice during this season. But before we dive into all that, man, I always like to start, who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, so thank you for the introduction. I hope we touch on, by the way, some of that appearance versus reality stuff, because that's fascinating subject matter. So yeah, Charley Mann, Chief Marketing Officer at Great Legal Marketing. For those who haven't heard my backstory, I've been doing this now for about a decade, working with Ben and sort of now running Great Legal Marketing at large. But I came out of college as a theater major, no background in marketing. It's why the title of my yet-to-be-published book is Too Stupid to Fail, How One Idiot Managed to Figure Out the Best Marketing Strategy Ever. And basically, it's the fact that, coming from the arts world is all about being a starving artist. Like they tell you should want to be a starving artist. But that was in conflict with me becoming a father and husband, which were bigger priorities for me in life. Even when I was like a sophomore in college, I kind of knew that someday I was going to have a family. Being a dad was important. I have a sister who's almost a decade younger than me. So, that sort of influences that concept. So coming out of college, I was looking for all these different jobs, and I found this one with this guy, Ben Glass, who didn't really know much about, but he gave me this book by a guy, Bill Glazer, called Outrageous Advertising. And I remember reading that book, and there's a page in it where he's talking about how he used like a trash can mailer. And mind you, he's running a men's clothing store, mailing out trash cans to people. And that seems like it would be antithetical to the idea of a professional buying suits with a trash can. But he was using these crazy ideas to grab attention and to drive response to marketing, which was so different from anything I had ever heard. We could do the fast forward version of fast forward 10 years. And here I am working with private clients, attorneys like you and everything, and trying to show them, hey, your marketing doesn't have to be traditional marketing, which is like that brand awareness type of stuff. It can be marketing that actually serves the client's needs and puts you behind them in the passenger seat and them in the driver's seat, really.
Yeah. Well, I think so. Let's start then with the appearance first. What's your sense of the kind of, I guess, legal landscape right now with everything going on?
Yeah. So with the theater background, I sort of know a performance when I see it. And there are some people who are being really genuine right now and kind of sharing their hardships. And then there are people who are trying to prop up their ego and image. And mind you, this was happening before the pandemic. And I've addressed this up front with a lot of attorneys before, because I'll never forget this, Justin. We were in a mastermind meeting, and a guy said very sheepishly, he said, guys, I'm only bringing home $400,000 a year. And he was saying that as though he should be embarrassed in the room. Now, he was bringing that out of a $1 million practice, 40% profit margin. So there were people in there like running 8-figure firms. They were like, if I could figure out how you get that profit margin. So they were envious of his profit margin. Measuring yourself up against all these other people doesn't make any sense. You measure yourself against yourself. Have you become better today at the end of the day than you were at the beginning of the day? That's the only real measuring stick that anyone should have. But right now, like, let's be honest, there are people, law firms that are hurting. We're fortunate. This profession, like, it's a durable profession.
Sure.
We're always going to need attorneys. Like, they tried to automate attorneys out, Justin, with LegalZoom and with like Q&A stuff on Nolo.
And they might at some point, but not yet.
Yeah. But, it's a durable profession, but people are definitely hurting. Some small law firms are closing right now. And there are others who are coming out and saying, guys, I wasn't affected by this at all. And I'm like, one, you haven't gotten to the end of the year.
Yeah.
Two, what do you mean by not affected? Were your growth plans put on hold? Lots of law firms had to do hiring freezes. And actually kind of, I guess, a good message right now for everyone is those decisions, while tough, they're okay. It's okay if you've had to do something like a hiring freeze. It's okay if you haven't pulled as much money out of the practice. I would tell any attorney that you should be pulling money out of the practice. You should regularly have money coming out. Put yourself first in your own law firm. But right now, you're going to have to make tough choices. And that's acceptable.
Yeah. I think even for me, I think a lot of, overachievers and high performing individuals were used to, this is going to be my best year ever. This is going to be my best year ever. And it might not be. and some of those things are outside of our control. I mean, a lot of this is outside.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things we can control. But like to your point, hiring freezes, change in growth plans and all these things, we have to be okay with accepting this and then making and not necessarily, or I think not necessarily trying to stick to the plan as it was and just keep ramming our head against the wall because this is what we said we're going to do. It's like, well, that might not work right now.
Yeah. And we still know that we want to grow in the future, but right now it's sort of a question, Justin, for your entire audience, which I know there are a lot of, professionals overall watching. The big question that I would ask them is, what do you want to keep from this crisis? Because there's actually a lot of stuff that's happened that's been good. I mean, how many people have said that they've loved spending extra time at home? How many people have said they've loved being able to reignite passion for an old hobby? All of that. And finally learning how to work from home because they were forced to do it. Like you had to learn that. What do you want to keep from all of this? Because there's something that you do want to keep. And it's not just a simple silver lining thinking, like, seriously, there's something that people want to keep from this. And they should redefine their future based on what they like about this.
Yeah. I mean, this is a huge topic and I'm sure, everyone, I think at a minimum needs to at least put some time into thinking about it and not just, keep going as business as usual. I mean, now we're kind of like on the tail end of this, but still, this is going to have major, or just, not necessarily negative, but changes in the future that I think everyone kind of needs to plan for. I want to ask you, since you guys are the, marketing gurus in this space, what are you seeing that is maybe not working as well as it was before, and maybe where, I mean, I know this is a super broad question, but, what was maybe not working as well before and what people should maybe be looking at right now?
Yeah. So the big thing that kind of has happened with this pandemic is it has revealed what does work and what doesn't work. So we've seen, say, for example, some of these big like social media things out there about, hey, let's rack up impressions on these short video ads that are kind of non-specific, that are general videos. We've seen them exposed because as people go through cutting things down, obviously the first things that you're going to cut, if you're really thinking about it, is you're going to cut things that are based on your ego and things that are bloat. A lot of times those fancy ads that are designed to generate likes and comments and things that are what I would refer to as soft metrics, those are the first things to go because you're shaken into the realization of this is not functional. This is not good marketing. It took a pandemic to do it, but at least you're having that moment of awakening. On the other side, what we're seeing done successfully is people who are focusing on lead generation right now, who are really thinking about, okay, not everyone's going to spend money at this moment, but they will spend money soon. How do I get them into my system so that way I can continually nurture them? So that way, as we come out of this, I'm building what I call my future bank that I'm going to harvest as we come out of this. You know, it's planting crops, it's sowing the fields. That way you may harvest later. So, you know, if you have a list that you add, say, 200 people to over the last couple of weeks who are maybe interested in the idea of probate, and I'm sure you have some extra, you know, repercussions from COVID that lead to that. But people who maybe have even put some of these fights on hold temporarily because, oh, we're dealing with this different world, what can be filed. I don't really want to argue with my brothers and sisters right now, even though I will argue with them in the future. Banking those leads that way as we come out, as you're continuously talking with them, they can now, when they have that reignite, you know, that reignition point of, mom and dad's inheritance. You know, I know that Jason took care of mom and dad, but let's be honest, Jason was also pulling out of the piggy bank while he was doing it, and now he's trying to steal out of the inheritance again. Right. They're going to get reignited, and they'll want to go and have that fight again.
Yeah. So, you know, I know you all and myself, it's always been kind of about, you know, lead gen is where it's at, right? I mean, that original person, that person just comes to your website and calls you and hires you right then and there. Very, very few and far between. We all want those, but that, you know, that's not the way it normally works. But I'm not hearing that, like, you know, it's too different, the lead generation, than what we should have been doing before all of this. It's just maybe now those, like what you said, you know, bloated, ego-driven ads and all of that, maybe business was coming a little bit easier, so we were okay on that type of spend. And now it's like, oh crap, wait, that's not working, and I have less money now. What should I do differently?
Yeah, you know, there's going to be a big culling of the herd, essentially. You're going to see people who have relied strictly on, oh, my name is known in the community, which really is, you know, they've been investing $40, $50, $100,000 a month in television ads, which, by the way, even though I'm not a huge proponent of that strategy because we work mostly with small law firms, and I hate using the term small law firm because it sounds like it's not as good of a business. It's a great way to get a high profit margin, I can tell you that much. But because we've been working with those folks, you know, I edge away from all that big spend. But it is technically a valid advertising strategy until a pandemic hits. And then you realize, oh, that reliance on people tuning into certain radio channels at certain times and certain broadcast mediums at certain times, that all goes away because everyone's on Netflix. Everyone is giving away their television to their children who are doing some type of Zoom session for their online learning. It completely changed the dynamic very, very quickly. And to be honest, we're going to see a lot of return to normalcy. At least that's the way I see it. Human beings love a good status quo, and they want to return to a status quo. But this is definitely going to change things, and it's going to wash out the market from the people who ran on thin margins, who maybe were this is kind of another thing, people who are living lifestyles well past their means. There's a tendency, especially with professionals who have, I mean, Justin, you had to go to extra school. You had to earn that. You had to pass the bar exam, all that stuff. You look at doctors as well. You look even just professionals who kind of have to hustle extra hard, like a realtor. Yeah. Those folks, as the money comes in, there is vulnerability to spending that money as fast as it comes in.
Yeah.
This also has exposed that as a dangerous behavior of people who just were washing out the money rather than building the rainy day fund.
Do you think, you know, it's going to change the industry as far as, you know, just from practicing I think I was listening to Ben on a podcast or something talking about, you know, virtual hearings and the benefit. I mean, that's been awesome. I think most attorneys are a big fan of that. But the practice itself, I mean, I know a lot of, you know, my colleagues are thinking, why did I just sign this new 3-year lease? I want out of this lease. You know, even my team's all working remotely, and we really have plans to kind of keep it like that. I mean, I think those are some of the potentially positive things. I don't know I'd be curious if that's what you're hearing from your members. And
yeah, so there's a mixed opinion on this, obviously. where I come from is in terms, you kind of have to know your management style is almost what I would say here. And I think a lot of people fancy themselves effective at having employees who are remote. I know I'm not that person. I know, honestly, Justin, I'm not great at managing people remotely. And part of it is just simply a weakness of mine. I know that if I have people in the office, I'm going to communicate more frequently and of higher quality with them than if they are away. Some people are really good at just managing projects. They're really good at keeping track of all of it. I sort of need to see someone's rhythm. I need to walk around. I need to see the motion of the office. And so I skew towards the people who have like the potentially the friend of yours who has the 3-year lease. I would say, be glad you have it and think of it as the fish tank into which you will grow. So I have a private client right now who actually took advantage of this opportunity where a bunch of people are abandoning ships, getting out of office space. He signed a relatively favorable lease in a space right next to his courthouse that actually triples his square footage.
Wow.
Triples his existing square footage right now. He will only need about half of that office, but he knows that he will grow into the rest of that. And that's kind of one of the things about that physical representation, that fish tank idea of you're going to grow into what you have. And I would always be concerned about someone who's managing remotely. The status quo becomes even easier to maintain when you don't feel pushed past that. Now, some people are internally driven. You're intrinsically motivated, and you may be one of those people, Justin. But I just know that for me, when I see an empty office, I'm like, who am I going to put in that office? How am I going to pay for that person? How do we make them more money?
It's tough. Yeah. I mean, that's a conversation I've been having with myself for a couple months now. So I don't have the answer, but yeah, I do think it is, kind of, you got to know yourself. I'm pretty good working remote. I am pretty, independent driven, but I have another colleague who's like, I can't build. He's like, I'm going to get fired because I just can't work from home. Like,
yeah. And then in that case, you got to I don't know, grab some 2x4s and plywood and build like a space inside of your home that is your office somehow. That's always the really tricky.
Bought like an at-home putting system, so he's basically just like putting inside all day long. But I was like, yeah, I mean, I like it. I'm a golfer too, but
I'm an ex-golfer, so
yeah,
I do have a little putting space in my office that I use occasionally, but it doesn't go well.
Well, I know we're coming up on our time here, and I wanted to talk about the book you have in the back, Play Left Fullback, Ben's new book. I'm in the middle of it right now. How's it? I know he kind of opened it or started the sales right before all of this came out. What's kind of been feedback on the book and anything you want to share on that?
Yeah. So Justin, the timing on it, honestly, in some ways it could have been better, but it also couldn't have been better. So the book launched on March 24th, which for most people, when they start thinking about coronavirus and everything, their thought process starts somewhere between March 14th and March 20th. So we were within the first 7 to 10 days for most people of when this started to escalate quickly in the news, things started shutting down, and people started panicking.
Yeah.
And when at the beginning of March, when you were hearing whispers about it, more or less, there had been reporting back in January, but March was really when people were like, is this going to be a thing? We started realizing, hey, if this erupts at this point in time, this message of be different, stand out, and most importantly, be proactive. Don't just react to the situation. Take some time to calm down, think realistically about your options, and then choose one that is central to your core values. This message couldn't have had better timing. So when it launched on March 24th, obviously, I don't know how well it would have launched without coronavirus, but I know how well it launched with coronavirus, and it launched very well. It has already superseded the previous 2 books that Ben has published, not in total sales, but let's just say percentage-wise, it is set to be an overachiever. And I really think it is well timed for this market. It also helps, frankly, that for those who don't know Ben, as you're experiencing, Justin, you get to know Ben and you get to hear more about his actual story, how he grew up. And there's a lot to relate in there. Yes, there's some marketing advice. Yes, there's some management advice. There's definitely a lot of mindset in there. But I think it's important, actually, even going back to what we talked about early on with the idea of appearances versus reality. This is a story that people can relate to, that they'll hopefully see themselves in. Even if, like you mentioned, you're not a soccer player, you weren't a soccer player, so the title was a mystery to you. But you're still going to find a way to relate to all that. I suppose if we had put it more in like backpacking terms, or hiking terms, it would have been right up your alley, right?
Yeah.
So the book is for any small professional practice owner. I think that this is a phenomenal work where you're going to realize, okay, I'm going to give myself permission to calm down. I'm going to give myself permission to survey my industry and look at it and go, that thing that everyone says that you have to do, I don't have to do it. The best example of this would be the way that Ben handles phone calls. Ben doesn't take any unplanned inbound phone calls, which for a lot of attorneys, especially if you're in a smaller firm where maybe it's 1-2 attorneys and 3 to 5 support staff, your thought process on that is, I'm absolutely answering the phone. If it rings, I'm answering it. Yeah. Ben has for over 15 years had this policy of no unplanned inbound phone calls. And it actually improved his relationship with clients because he was able to say to them, here's the important thing about this policy. It means that when I'm working on your case, no one can interrupt me. The phone won't interrupt. So my team, being the masters of intake, will handle all of that process while I'm doing the most valuable thing for you, which is actually progressing your case and being the master strategist for it. So that completely bucked the norm of the profession. And that's what this book will do. It'll give you opportunities to look at the profession, look at the industry you're in, survey it, and go, that thing that I hate about it. A great example, realtors, who I know watch the show. A lot of them are probably in residential real estate, mm-hmm. and they hate doing the weekend showings, the evening showings. Find out how to go and do commercial real estate, because a lot of those people are looking 9 to 5, or investor real estate, where they just want to have a prospectus on how good the place is going to be, how much money they could get, etc. You can get outside of whatever the industry norm is, and this will help you develop that mindset, develop that opportunity-seeking behavior.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I'm in the middle. I love the no inbound calls. I've been doing that pretty religiously for a little while now. And I know a lot of attorneys, a lot of professionals can't even imagine that. And I can't imagine doing it, because it's like, I mean, I'm trying to work on that with emails now. I think you're pretty good about, not checking your email. You have set times and whatnot, but
yeah.
That one I'm working on.
It starts with the 2-a-day policy that I've seen a lot of members do, which is they even have it in like an away message that says, do you remember like away messages with AOL Instant Messenger?
Yeah.
Where it's like, I check email when I get into the office and before I leave the office. If you have a more urgent communication, you can either email X staff person or call the office at Y.
Yeah. Well, you can't see, I've got this wall lined with other white pages, and one of those is like my proposed email schedule and all of that. So work in progress. Last question before we get off here. I was like, any words of wisdom, couple nuggets for any attorneys out there, what they should be doing right now?
Yeah. So I'll take it back to sort of what we talked a little bit about with the lead generation. Right now is a chance to focus even more on what does a client need most from you. And it's not just, like in your case, it's not simply a fair division of the estate. In your case, it's basically settling the emotional trauma of a family. Like, how do they communicate with brothers and sisters in a time of just powder kegs and pressure cookers? That should be the title of your next book, by the way, Powder Kegs and Pressure Cookers. That, just off the top of my head, that one's yours. And think about what are people really going through? And don't be afraid to ask your prospects these questions. Thinking about realtors, ask up front, do you have concerns about visiting homes right now? Are there certain safety precautions that you value most? And put the focus back on them more than any other thing. Because right now, if you're going out there and saying, I have 15 years of experience, I graduated from X school, I'm part of the $1 Million Advocate Club. emotions are running high, and emotions are the most important thing right now. This doesn't mean that you need to get sappy about it, of course, but it does mean that the more you think carefully about human behavior and human psychology over just like, let's run Google ads,
Yeah.
the more successful you will be.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I knew this was going to be a good one, man. You did not disappoint. So I appreciate
Thank you, Justin. Today, man. No, this was fantastic. This was awesome talking with you.
Yeah. Thank you, brother. All right, guys, take care. And we'll see you in a week. Have a good one. Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you.